And good morning. Welcome to the Out and About Show on 1590 KVGB. Focus on Stafford County. Coming to you a little bit early this week as we have an opportunity to talk about all the great things happening in Stafford County. Joining us on the program today, Economic Development Director for Stafford County, Carolyn Dunn, and Program Director Ashley Bevan on the program today. Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving. Love this time of year.
What did you didn't bring you food for us or anything like that, right? I thought we'd get some gingerbread men or something like that. Ashley, I mean, you're a gingerbread cook, right? I mean, I thought we would have that today.
You know what? I kid you not. There's actually a turkey in my car right now. My son raised, and I'm delivering while I'm here in Great Bend to one of his customers.
A live one?
Well, no.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, did you roll the windows down? I mean, you can get in trouble for that if you leave your turkey in the car. So your son raises turkeys.
He did. That was his project this year. So this Thanksgiving has been, I guess, all the more something we've anticipated this year.
Well, I'm glad that you can take care of many different things when you come to town today. So we've got a lot to talk about today, and let's get started. This is something we haven't touched on in the that's the second one down. But let's talk about the housing development, and looks like you started off the year with an additional $90,000 to use toward that development. And because of bonus allocations of community service tax credits at the very end of 2014.
Yeah, well, I thought, this being the week of Thanksgiving, it might be just kind of nice to reflect on all the things that I can be thankful for that have happened in our organization over the past year. And that was a big one at the beginning of the year. We've got those bonus allocations of tax credits. Kind of the way it worked was at the end of 2014. Looking statewide, there were other organizations around the state that weren't fully getting their tax credits placed. And so Department of Commerce said, hey, we don't want these to go unused. Economic Development, since you've already placed all yours, you can have some extra ones. And so the combination of that being available from the state of Kansas, and then also it takes people at our level here that are willing to contribute and take advantage of those tax credits. And we've had wonderful businesses and individuals to participate in that. And the end result is we kind of got an extra $90,000 that has allowed us to continue our housing work without a lot of debt. So not a lot of risk to our local taxpayers. And we're continuing to build. In fact, one of the other things that we're doing while we're here in Great Bend today is we're signing a contract on another house to be built in the town of Stafford. So wouldn't be possible if we didn't have, just a good foundation of financing in place to begin with. Yeah,
this has been a very busy 2000, and this has been a very busy year for your group. And take me back to the when this idea first got started, because that was 3 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, we became formally an organization in 2011. So, a lot of that work at that time was trying to set the foundation in more of the organizational sense. We were very deliberate about becoming a 501c3 nonprofit, knowing that it would open up a wider range of funding possibilities than if we operated solely out of the county government. We can still do projects through the county government. We work very closely with them. We wouldn't exist without their support. But by having the 501c3 in place, that allows us to, qualify for a wider range of funding. We can carry funding over from one year to the next in a way that's difficult to do within a government setting. So a lot of the work was done just kind of on that, that legally stuff in the first years. And then we tried to then follow through with getting funding so we could carry out projects, and I guess we're more in that phase right now. Okay, I'm going to jump off script here. I never do that, right? Because I just kind of want to go back, and it's, I know you're not going to say, well, I did all this, because I know you had a lot of help with this, but Stafford County Economic Development, kind of tell me about the story of this, because... Well, it is several core people that I think banded together. Part of my own, I think, passion for it was driven by being on school board at the time and seeing that we were not that far away from, consolidation. And it's not that I don't want to work with the neighboring county. To me, it has absolutely nothing to do with a rivalry with a neighboring town or something like that. I don't favor consolidation because I don't think it's in the educational best interests of kids. They spend a lot of time driving back and forth to different locations. It's I don't think it's efficient. I don't think that it's really a good idea to center our education in places, where parents aren't available. I mean, we set up situations where your kindergartner may be 45 minutes away and they all get sick, and the logistics of, trying to deal with that or just be a part of the everyday part of your school as parents, I think it's hard. I don't think it's, number one, in the educational best interest of kids. And number two, I think it's something that just leads to other economic decline. Once you lose your school, you lose your grocery store and the hospital and da-da-da-da-da. I think it's a bad trajectory, and I think that it is better to kind of be resilient and decide, hey, we're going to be more deliberate about building our community that supports the school and vice versa. So that's a lot of what I think has fueled my interest in it. I'm not alone. Looking back in that first year, Stafford County Farm Bureau played a critical role in that. We were all aware of some grant funding that was available at the state level. And it was the Stafford County group that went to the county commission and said, hey, if you'll apply for that grant and set in course Stafford County had been collecting money for economic development for a long time, but had not been spending it on something involving staff or something consistent. There tended to be kind of projects here and there. Stafford County Farm Bureau said, use that money to hire a director, apply for this grant, that'll provide some training, and hey, we will kick in $5,000 to sweeten the deal if you'll do that. So there you go. It was a core group of people. It wasn't any one person. It was kind of utilizing a lot of those people that were involved in that are involved in farming businesses. They want to see the communities continue to thrive. They were on school boards too.
And it made sense. You have three different. You talked about the schools. I mean, there's three schools.
Mm-hmm.
There's that you're talking about. It's not just in St. John. It's not in Stafford. It's not in Maxville. You had three different schools there.
Right.
And this was 2010 or 2011?
2010 might have been the very, very beginnings of it toward the end of the year, but it was 2011 when we really solidified things and got the 501c3 in place and so forth.
Okay, so now you're economic. We've got an economic development board, economic development director. Did you feel like everybody said, okay, well, we've got one, now let's see what she can do?
Well,
I mean, because you look back and all the things that have happened over the last 4 years is pretty impressive.
Oh, you're so nice, Steve.
No, I'm not. Just ask anyone down the hall here. There's a lot of things. I mean, okay, we're going to do this. Now let's see what we're going to do. So,
right. Some of my philosophy is you got to try a lot. Some of it's going to work, some of it isn't. And we've got those examples of things that didn't work out the way we hoped to, sure. But you just keep persisting and we've had some things that I think we can be very proud of.
But when you first start out on this housing idea, we're going to put in house. Well, why do we want to do that? I mean, there's a lot of explanation to go with every idea that you have.
That's true. A lot of explanation. Even as far as like going through the grant process, you have to be able to explain why they should fund you as opposed to somebody else. So some of that's data gathering. I look back at that first year, we had an intern that worked with us, and one of the things that he helped with was assembling some data that related to housing, and that was a report we were able to use then that led to some success in some grant applications.
And probably some of that data that I remember they got is, okay, we haven't had a new house built in Stafford County or a new.
Well, it was mostly focused on rental, the need for rent,
right.
or at least some of what we took from the data really focused our attention on the need for additional rental housing. And yes, the point came out that we hadn't had specifically rental housing constructed for moderate income residents in the town of Maxville. I think the date was 1948. There was a duplex that was built about that time there, and then similarly in Stafford. And we've had some low income housing built since then, but if you look at just the idea of workforce, moderate income housing. We look at when was the last just, like duplex built in 1952 in Stafford. It's been a while.
It was one of those stories that people, well, okay, I knew that, but I didn't want to know it. So it's one of those things. But then again, and then more explanation. So, okay, if you don't have housing, you can't attract people to come in. And I think we saw that a lot with your school districts and the schools trying to recruit teachers to come in and teach in their communities.
Well, again, talking about that core group of people that bind together to make progress here. Right now, we have 2 superintendents on our economic development board, and I think they very much represent that big picture of how this all works. But I've heard Dr. Taylor in particular joke that she becomes an accidental real estate agent every time she hires staff, because part of it is figuring out where they will live.
Proud of what you've done, what everyone's been able to do here in the last 5 years?
Yeah, it's fun work.
Well, there's a lot of things going on. It's something we want to touch on a little bit. And one of those, talk about the community development entity through the U.S. Department of Treasury. What did that do?
Well, that hasn't done anything yet, if I'm really honest. But I feel like it's a little bit like getting that 501c3 status was for, setting the stage for further, either grant funding or whatever. The community development entity designation is with the Department of Treasury, and it qualifies our county for certain federal tax credits, which I hope will go along with this Port Authority idea well and allow us to focus on some business expansion of a much bigger scale than what we've been able to focus on to this point.
Okay, speaking of that Port Authority, where are we at now? That's been a slow-moving process. You knew it was going. You knew it was going to be, because you have to get the legs underneath everything before you can start building anything on those legs.
Right.
But that's
we got the legal framework finished this year. Looking back to 2014, some of that was a legislative process. I mean, it literally takes the blessing of the state legislature to set the wheels in motion on this. They passed a resolution authorizing our Port Authority to begin. And so then from that, it's a little bit like setting up your corporation or nonprofit. Then you still have to go through that process of establishing your bylaws and articles of corporation and electing officers and designating who your board is and all that kind of stuff. And we've done that over the past year. So we're basically poised to move if we can find an anchor tenant. I've tried to help guide this process in a way that is conservative for local taxpayers. We're not going to, employ that idea of if you build it, they will come. We're not. We're going to find an anchor tenant and use the finance that, the money that comes from the investment of that anchor tenant to develop the port so that we don't have to raise taxes to do it. So part of the reason that I think the port will also offer some advantages in development over, say, any other type of industrial park is that port's facilities are permanently tax exempt. So we can take a piece of property that is currently undeveloped, not generating a whole lot in property taxes, and as it is developed, instead of instead of that, what would incrementally come like in property taxes, we can capture more in fees than in property taxes. And that's what's going to allow us, I think, to be able to finance this without having to go to taxpayers and issue a bond. We can assess fees, leases and fees related to the port, essentially equivalent to what otherwise would be paid in property taxes for the improvements. But we have more flexibility to craft that outside of a real strict tax process so that we can, again, finance our improvements without a lot of new burdens to taxpayers.
Maybe when people wonder, well, I want to get this Port Authority, nothing like that ever comes along, and then lo and behold, the Kansas Department of Transportation comes out with these bids that they want transload facilities, right? And that kind of opens it, and maybe you weren't far enough along in the process at that time,
right?
But it shows you why you want to have those things in place where something like that does come up.
Exactly. So I hope in another year or 2 or 3 or 4 or however long it takes us to get this going that those opportunities come up again through Department of Transportation. because I think there's a lot of potential there.
Okay, and we mentioned those housing and the duplex fully rented in Maxville now, right? And then, of course, what you've done down at the home in Hudson, too.
Yeah, we're getting close. I think that we'll probably have that ready at the beginning of 2016 for a new tenant. We actually even have some young people who have expressed an interest in it. So I think it will have no problem finding a new occupant as soon as it's ready, and we're getting close.
Some other things. Cheryl's painted in Stafford. The cool thing about this is that people see that things are happening in their town. I mean, when you go down and you have the bike and build involvement, you see people doing it in your community. And Ashley, I like when your story was you're down there taking pictures of this. These guys were getting into this. They made their own bike share. They developed them themselves, and that's kind of got to be fun when you see people getting excited about, hey, this is making our community better.
Definitely. And Carolyn and I, we just went to a Stafford City Council meeting last night, to kind of talk about the housing development that will start next year, in regards to sewer, but sidewalk kind of got brought up again. And just talking with the city superintendent, Sean, over there, he doesn't mind change. He's kind of for it, Well, if we can do things that will bring people to our community, let's do it.
That was the theme that was very much coming out of City Council in Stafford last night. And it's just it's so heartening to see that.
When you see people get excited about what's going on in the different communities and Stafford, St. John, and Maxville, and City of St. John awarded that community development block grant for improving the sidewalk infrastructure. Where are we at with that right now?
Well, they're actually, I guess, kind of in that, it's the paperwork process. It's the paperwork stage, I think.
Paperwork, yeah.
But it'll actually construction on that will start here in the spring when the weather's better and all that kind of stuff. But that was a pretty good grant. So that was something I would definitely count on my list of things to be thankful for in 2000.
You got a big list here. It's been a pretty good year. Now, also, okay, you Stafford County Economic Development Director. Well, now we're going to add another person. And
all things come from working with good people.
It does. And talk about this process where you've been able to have a program director and what's that meant?
Well, it means that we can, expand the scope of what we do. So, it's and even a real small, simple sense, it's actually something that helps bring another young person to come and live in our county. So, that's one part of the story, but I really I'm very thankful that Ashley is interested in coming to work with us. And I just consider that one of the things that I'm especially thankful for this year. That idea that, again, all of this kind of work depends on human interactions. And if you've got good help, you can just do so much more.
It's what they say around here too. That's amazing. Ashley, how long have you been now the program director?
Since June 1.
Wow. And kind of a whirlwind right now. What's
somewhat?
Some enlightening things that you've seen right now?
I'm still somewhat getting used to what do I need to be doing. Yesterday I spent hours on our website developing and rearranging layouts of pages and adding pictures, and it's just still kind of a learning process. I do a lot with our social media and marketing. And
by the way, nice job.
Thank you.
I saw the changes that have been made on there.
Well, thank you.
I think
it makes a difference.
Yeah, she does a great job.
Now.
And that is time-consuming stuff is to put that together, but the communication is important. So again, I wouldn't be able to do this alone, and I'm thankful that our office has been able to expand and that Ashley is here.
Well, there's a lot of things going on.
There's so much I think that we do that is really kind of, I guess it's community leadership. Nobody really gives you a handbook when you start these offices and says, this is exactly what you need to do. We go to training, we learn about what is maybe working in other areas, we try to network, but ultimately we just kind of have to, I think, take some initiative to try things. Some things it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you don't get anywhere if you don't just take the initiative to try something. And I think Ashley really embraces that mentality, and so she's a great fit.
School enrollment stabilized in the county. Of course, it's not the sole indicator of how if your county is growing or decreasing in size, but that's certainly a positive, especially you go back in the early 2000s when it was going down pretty fast.
Right. I think that's one of those indicators that's easy to track year to year. Looking back from that 2000 to 2010 period, overall Stafford County lost about 10% of its population. That's what it put it into the Rural Opportunity Zone program, for example, the student loan repayment program that the state has. It's all predicated on the idea of counties that are in decline. Stafford County qualified for it. Several of the other things, even the idea that our Economic Development Agency is in the eyes of the IRS charitable because we are quote unquote combating community decline. And so by just even slowing that down, I feel like we're heading in the right direction. So have we, landed the big industrial, whatever? No, it's not necessarily a lot of visible stuff, but I think we are kind of incrementally addressing some of the things that have been our, perpetual challenges. And one way that I can point to that maybe indicates we're heading in the right direction is school enrollment is at least stabilized.
And you have never said from the beginning, so we're going to go out and we're going to get, Spirit Aero Systems to move to Stafford.
Right. It really,
you're not, but one job at a time. And we saw the number of new businesses that you've had in the last year, maybe 1 or 2 employees, but they all add up, don't they?
Right. And that's part of, I guess, going back to that idea, we go and we learn what, is working well in other rural areas. And a lot of the emphasis has been on growing what you've got. You take the businesses you've got and see if you can add 1 or 2 employees or incrementally just an entrepreneurial kind of thing, small business.
Entrepreneurial's been your buzzword, and you've started it down at the. Can you wait till you see one of these kids that started off these entrepreneurial classes when they're in 4th grade come up and start a big business in one of those communities in Stafford County?
We went on a field trip to Atwood at the very beginning of this, and they have that example. They've got a couple of young men that have started a business that now employs, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 people. So
and the amazing
it's a
story
long haul, but
yeah.
I think that those are the things that we're trying to set the stage for.
And the great story about the Stafford County bread makers. That's
yeah.
That's a great story there.
And I think we've kind of got to employ more than just one strategy. So yes, there's a lot of value to be had in the idea of developing entrepreneurs, but we know that that's pretty long-term stuff. And at the same time, we've got immediate needs. And so that's where I say, we try different things, and we'll try to, with the Port Authority, see if we can establish some business of a bigger scope in somewhat the near term.
Well, so 2016, I think you got plenty of irons in the fire. You probably just keep going with those for 2016, but I know you're always looking for new stuff, right?
I don't see big changes in 2016, even as I think through how we're budgeting for the year. It is pretty much a year where we're going to just keep doing what we've been doing just do more of it, I guess.
Well, thanks for stopping by. This has been eye-opening today. Everything going on. So glad you made it to the big city today. Go deliver your turkey. Enjoy a good lunch, and we'll talk to you next month, okay?
Well, thanks. Have a happy holiday.
All right, you too. Ashley Bevan with us, Carolyn Dunn here on Focus on Stafford County on 1590 KVGB. Stay tuned. News coming up next. Have a great day, everyone.